I didn't find out by accident. I found out because something didn't add up. The account was quiet for too long. Not empty. Not flagged. Just wrong. Balances don't lie, even when people do. I sat there staring at the screen, refreshing it once, then again, like the numbers might correct themselves if I gave them enough time. They didn't. The savings that had taken years to build, carefully planned, untouched, protected, was no longer where it was supposed to be. Not gone completely. Just moved. Reallocated. Used. I didn't panic. Not immediately. Because panic doesn't give you answers. Clarity does. And clarity was starting to form. I picked up my phone and made the call. It rang twice before being answered. "Hey," came the voice. Light. Casual. Too casual. "I need to ask you something," I said. "Sure," they replied. "The account," I continued. "What happened to it?" There was a pause. Short. Controlled. Then, "Oh, that," they said. "That?" Like it was nothing. Like it didn't matter. "What about it?" they added. I leaned back slightly, letting the moment settle. Because that response told me everything. "You moved the money," I said. Not a question. A statement. Another pause. Longer this time. "We used it," they replied. Used it. Just like that. No explanation. No hesitation. Just justification without details. For what? I asked. I already knew, but I needed to hear it. Because sometimes the truth needs to be said out loud. It was important, they said. We needed it. That word. Needed. It always comes up when someone takes something that wasn't theirs. For what? I repeated. Another pause. Then, the wedding. Of course. I closed my eyes for a second, not out of frustration, but because the clarity had just completed itself. The decorations. The venue. The constant talk about how everything had to be perfect. How everything had to look right. It all made sense now. You used my medical school fund, I said slowly, for a wedding. It's not just a wedding, they replied quickly. It's a once-in-a-lifetime event. Once in a lifetime. I almost smiled. Not because it was funny, because it was predictable. That money wasn't for that, I said. We know, they replied. But you'll figure something out. You always do. There it was. The same assumption. The same belief. That I would adjust. Adapt. Handle it. Because I always had. That wasn't your decision to make, I said. We're your parents, they replied. And just like that, they justified everything. Not with logic. With authority. We did what was best for the family, they added. Best for the family. Another phrase that sounds right, until it isn't. I didn't respond immediately, because arguing now wouldn't change what had already been done. The money was gone. The decision had been made. Without me. When were you planning to tell me? I asked. We thought you'd understand, they said. That wasn't an answer. It was avoidance. I'm not asking what you thought, I said. I'm asking when. Silence. Because there wasn't a good answer. We didn't think it would be a big deal, they finally said. That was the moment. Not when the money was taken. Not when the decision was made. This. When they reduced it. When they made it small. When they decided it didn't matter. I nodded once, even though they couldn't see it. All right, I said. That response surprised them. I could hear it in the silence that followed. You're not upset, they asked. I understand the decision, I replied. That wasn't entirely true, but it didn't need to be. Because understanding something doesn't mean accepting it. It just means seeing it clearly. We'll make it up to you, they added quickly. That part almost made me pause. Not because I believed it, because it revealed something. They thought this was about compensation. It wasn't. It was about choice. And they had taken mine. When is the wedding? I asked. In a few days, they said. Everything's already set. Of course it was. Because everything had already been decided. Without me. I'll be there, I said. That answer settled them. Of course it did, because they thought the situation had been resolved. They thought the conversation had ended. They thought everything was moving forward exactly as planned. They were wrong. I ended the call and set my phone down. The room was quiet again, but it didn't feel the same, because now everything was clear. Not just what they did, why they did it. They didn't see it as taking. They saw it as using. They didn't see it as wrong. They saw it as necessary. And they didn't think I would challenge it, because I never had. Until now. I opened my laptop slowly, pulling up a different set of files. Not savings. Not accounts. Something else. Something they had never asked about. Never noticed. Never questioned. Because they didn't need to. The screen loaded. Numbers. Structures. Ownership details. Everything exactly where it was supposed to be. Unaffected. Because what they took was only part of the story. The rest was something they had never seen. I leaned back slightly, letting the moment settle. Not emotional. Not reactive. Just certain. Because by the time the wedding happened, everything they thought they controlled would be seen differently. Not through argument. Not through explanation. Through reality. And reality doesn't need permission. The wedding was exactly what they wanted it to be. Perfect. That's the word everyone kept using. Perfect venue. Perfect lighting. Perfect arrangements. Every detail polished to the point where nothing looked out of place. It felt expensive, because it was. I walked in quietly, not drawing attention, not needing to. Conversations were already flowing, guests moving around, everything built on the same confidence I had heard on the phone. That everything was handled. That everything was under control. I saw them near the center, welcoming people, smiling like nothing had ever gone wrong. Like nothing had ever been taken. You made it, one of them said when they noticed me. Of course I did. I said I would, I replied. That seemed to relax them. Because my presence confirmed something in their minds. That everything was fine. That the situation had been accepted. You look good, they added. Glad you could be part of this. Part of this. That phrase stayed for a moment. Because it meant something different now. I nodded once and stepped further inside. The room was full. Voices overlapping, laughter filling the space, everything moving exactly as they had planned. And for a while, nothing happened. Because moments like this don't need to be rushed. They unfold. Naturally. The first shift came quietly. A phone call. Not mine. His. I saw it from across the room. The way his expression changed. Subtle at first. Then, not. He stepped away, answering quickly. Yes, he said. A pause. Then, what do you mean? That tone. Sharp. Controlled. But not steady. A few people noticed. Not enough to stop the event. Just enough to feel something wasn't right. I stayed where I was. Watching. Because now, it had begun. Another pause. Longer this time. That's not possible, he said. Of course he would say that. Because what was happening didn't fit into what he believed. I saw him turn slightly, his back to the room now, his voice lower. What do you mean my position has been terminated? He asked. That line didn't stay quiet. It moved. Not loudly, but enough. Enough for a few people nearby to hear. Enough for the atmosphere to shift. I watched as he stood there, listening, his expression tightening with every second. This has to be a mistake, he said. There was no notice, no discussion. Another pause. Then, no, that doesn't make sense. I've been handling. He stopped, because now, he wasn't in control of the conversation. Who approved this? He asked. That question stayed, because it mattered. Not to them, to him. Another pause. Long, heavy. Then, silence. Not from the call, from him. because whatever answer he had just received changed everything. He lowered the phone slowly, staring at nothing for a second before turning back toward the room. And that's when he looked at me, not casually, not by accident, directly. Like something had just connected. Like something had just made sense. I didn't move, didn't react, because this moment didn't need help. It needed to complete itself. He walked toward me, not quickly, not slowly, just deliberately. "What did you do?" he asked when he reached me. No greeting, no pretense, just clarity. "I made a decision," I replied. "That's not an answer," he said. "I just got a call. They said—" "I know what they said," I interrupted. That stopped him, just for a second. "Then explain it," he said. I looked at him, not with emotion, not with anger, just understanding. "The firm you work for," I said, "is no longer structured the way you think it is." A pause. Short. Sharp. "What does that mean?" he asked. "It means ownership changed," I replied. That landed. Because now, he was listening. "They said the decision came from the top," he added. "Yes," I said. Another pause. Longer this time. More real. "You're saying that was you?" he asked. I didn't answer immediately. Not because I wasn't sure. Because the truth doesn't need to be rushed. Yes. One word. Simple. Final. Nothing came back immediately. Because now, everything made sense. The call. The timing. The sudden shift. It wasn't random. It wasn't a mistake. It was structure. And that structure was mine. "Why?" he asked. That question stayed. Not because it was difficult. Because it showed exactly what he didn't understand. "Why not?" I replied. That wasn't an answer. But it was enough. Because now, he understood something. Not everything, but enough. "This is because of the money?" he asked. I almost smiled. Not because it was funny. Because it was small. "No," I said. "The money just made it clear." Another silence. Because now, he was connecting it. "You took something that wasn't yours," I continued, "and assumed it wouldn't matter." No response. Because there wasn't one. "You built something on top of that assumption," I said. "And now," I paused. Not for effect. For clarity. "You're seeing what happens when it's removed." That landed. Not loudly, but completely. Around us, the room had shifted. Not stopped, but changed. Because something had happened. Something people didn't fully understand, but could feel. "This doesn't make sense," he said quietly. "It doesn't have to," I replied. Because reality doesn't need to match expectation. It just exists. "I didn't know," he said. And for the first time, it sounded real. "I know," I replied, because that was always the point. He didn't know. He didn't ask. He didn't question. He assumed. And now, he understood the cost of that. "What happens now?" he asked. That question again. Different situation. Same meaning. I looked around the room. At the event. At the people. At the moment they had built using something that was never theirs to begin with. "You move forward," I said. "How?" he asked. "The same way I did," I replied. Without assuming anything is guaranteed. That landed. Because now, he understood. Not everything, but enough. I stepped back slightly, letting the moment settle. Because there was nothing left to say. Nothing left to explain. The situation itself was the answer. The wedding continued. Of course it did. Because events like this don't stop for understanding. They continue. Even when everything underneath them changes. And as I walked away, I didn't feel anything heavy. No anger. No satisfaction. Just balance. Because they took my future to create their moment. And in doing so, they revealed something they never questioned. Where control actually was. And now, they knew.